Good afternoon. Tom Ginn, Own Your Own Health. We will be right back. Good afternoon, Tom Ginn, Own Your Own Health. Just want to say I'm so grateful that those that might be coming in today, we just encourage you to tag and share, make comments or whatever. But Own Your Own Health is a platform that my wife and I have created. My wife has a wellness center, and we got some crises going on in our culture and in and around health. And what does that really mean? And so we're taking a role to bring out what is alternative health. What are the options? Holistic approaches, things that aren't really being taught, so that we can have an opportunity to live our lives at the optimum level of health. And we're bringing in some great people, like our guest that I will be introducing here in a second. But it's all about bringing new levels of awareness to health and the challenges that we faced, and that there are alternatives to other than what has been traditionally taught in our culture around health. So with that said, I'm going to introduce my guest. Hope has spent 11 years in the health fitness industry before transitioning to human services 13 years ago, where she'd worked with risk youth and families. With 20 plus years of education, certifications, personal experience, Hope feels confident that while you are going to learn science-based, smart information, she will also help you better understand that from the heart of compassion of helping others who are struggling. She started Hope for Wellness 4 years ago and has an opportunity to collaborate with other coaches, mental health providers, practitioners, healers, mentors, to provide a safe space for connection, education, alternative options to wellness and self-care. The reason education around this topic is important to her is because of her own journey, which started after a decade of emotional upheaval. You're going to hear her story. Let me introduce Hope Flansburg. I think we may have lost her. Hope, are you there? We have a little bit of technical difficulty going on. We're going to just continue a little bit about Hope here in a moment. We have a little bit of technical difficulty, so she'll be coming back on. But Own Your Own Health is I believe, an area of our own responsibility. Being educated and being informed is so important about taking control of your own health. And it's only through awareness, study, research, validation. And so that's what Own Your Own Health's about. And Hope is still having a few challenges. So we're going to, if anybody would just want to, chime in real quick and identify who's out there, or just like to recognize you, we want you to tag and share this information out to you. I'm getting a private message. She can hear me, but can you see me? There she is.
There we go.
Are you back?
I am. I think my computer overheated, so I had to move again. So
well, you've got great lighting and all that.
Okay, good.
Hey,
Good.
Technology. That's being live. You got to be prepared for anything. So, matter of fact, the lighting's even better where you're at right now.
Okay, good. Yeah, and it's much more helpful for me because I was squinting into the sun where I was. So yeah, this is perfect. And where I'm at my parents' house in Nebraska, where I was born and raised. And it is, we're getting 100 degrees here today, and I'm not used to that where I have been living. So I'm not used to this heat.
Okay. Well, I love it. The fact that, we just roll. This is what our program's about.
Good.
Um, what I like to do before we get going, because my sponsor in the industry, I want to make sure that I stay in compliance with the FDA, because even though the company's name there, they don't want to associate. So I want to make sure that whatever we're talking about is this right here. The statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. Anything we're saying is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. So I feel fulfilled my obligations in compliance with the company I represent. So I just want to do that as a protocol, and hope, I'm excited to have you on. I saw you in one of our other colleagues' interviews. What you were sharing just resonated with me so deeply, and people need to hear your message. And
Well,
so
thank you.
With that all said, I'm just going to turn, now that we got the technical stuff out of the way, turn it over to you and just share a little bit about yourself, where you are right now, where you're from, a little bit of background about yourself, your family, and then we'll talk a little bit about your story, your why.
Okay. Perfect. Well, I mean, I'm honored to be here. This is a privilege. It really is. And collaboration in what you're doing and what I do is huge. And the more people that we find who have alternative methods and modalities and practitioners and things to share, and the more that we can spread the word and connect with each other, we're going to connect with other people, and we're going to start seeing a huge shift in helping people advocate for their health in ways that we weren't necessarily taught for years. And so, like you, I'm really excited to see the path and the journey and the shift and the transformation, and how this is going to really help society as a whole moving forward. So thank you. I love being here. I love meeting people who do what you do, and talking about it. So I'm Hope Flansburg. I am an author and a wellness educator, and truly my heart's passion is to teach people how our bodies were designed to work. Because like I said, we were kind of taught a hodgepodge of junk. Not, I don't want to say junk, but we were just taught a hodgepodge of things growing up, all different messages, and finding out, especially now, how many people are struggling with so many unnecessary diseases and symptoms and health issues that I kind of quote this because so many people have a tendency to say, well, I just have to live with it. And I'm wanting to debunk that theory that we just have to live or suffer with these things, because it's just because it's normal doesn't mean that or just because it's common doesn't mean that it's normal. It's not the normal way for our body to work. So what I do is I hold events, I educate individuals, people, groups, and collaborate with a variety of practitioners on self-care modalities, alternative healing modalities, holistic health. And my goal and my motto is to make it realistic, reachable, and functional. The reason I got started in this is I grew up in Western Nebraska, wonderful family, wonderful childhood. And then, in my 20s, started dealing with long-term chronic stress and trauma that really was starting to affect my health in negative ways, emotionally and physically. And as I teach and as I educate, we go into that whole mind-body connection, how your emotional health impacts your physical health impacts your emotional health, the whole big circle. So looking at us as a whole. So I really started learning about that in my 20s. I'm 48 now. So about 20 years ago was kind of a big aha moment for me. I became a single mom. My children were born with a variety of health issues themselves, and then my health issues and a divorce and being a single parent. And then went through more chronic stress with the job that I had, which I absolutely loved. But when I was working with at-risk youth and families, and when people are serving other people, I learned how that impacts our emotional and physical health, and burnout is very, very common. So while I had my personal life, then my work life on top of it, and then blended a family on top of it, which came with what amazing, wonderful life, but came with its own set of chronic stress circumstances, and just navigating, shared custody, um, more kids. We all had our own trauma, our own stories, our own baggage. So my health crashed pretty badly. And I was, doctor after doctor after doctor after doctor was unable to really tell me what it was I needed to do for my health, except kind of treat the symptoms. And again, I had never in my life done anything different or been told that there was anything different than to just treat the symptoms. But there was something in my gut, call it divine intervention, call it higher power, whatever you want to call it. But there was something in my gut and a little voice in my head that said, no, let's go down a different path. Let's learn something different. So that was almost 16, 17 years ago. And I really, at that point in time, dove down a rabbit hole to learn the core root of what was going on with my body and why my body was not working the way that it was designed to work. And that just morphed into, it takes trial and error and amazing people crossing my path who taught me a variety of different modalities and supports and things that I could do. And it's been life-changing. It's absolutely been life-changing. And I'm still learning, but while I continue to learn, it's a journey. It's a lifelong journey. But as I continue to learn, I just had this, it was about 6-7 years ago, I was talking to my integrative medical provider. And I said, why don't more people know about this? Why aren't people being taught? Why aren't there the discussions about this? And so I decided that I wanted to be the person that started having conversations and discussion and working with other people who have the same desire and passion as well to really help and support people in their health and wellness in a way that, like we said, can be really life-changing for people, and simple, easy solutions. And when you have a support system, what I've learned is when you have a support system, even the ones that can seem a little bit challenging just because we've gotten so used to living a certain way, when you have that support system around you, it's just motivating. And when you start feeling better, it really, one little step, one little shift, one little change, it's like, oh my gosh, I can just keep doing this. So that's what I do now. I love to collaborate. My events are on hold because we are in a transition process again with our life. We're building our forever home in Montana, and we're going to start holding some small in-person retreats there. So in the meantime, we're living between a family home in Wyoming, and I come back and forth to my parents in Nebraska a lot. So I'm kind of a gypsy, just kind of hopping around, doing a variety of things, but loving technology and the ability to continue to do this work, even though I'm not actually holding in-person events at this time.
Wonderful. You made a couple of comments. I always like to, just sort of, we talk about, that why isn't this information available? And we have to understand the powers to be. There's reasons why it, and I'm not downplaying anything about Western medicine. And if I break a knee or have surgery, I know that we've got probably the best modalities and people to take care of that. And the same thing with the area of our pharmaceuticals. If I have an immediate need, thank God we have that. But there's a lot of what we're talking about in our health, in our crisis with our chronic illnesses that we have, can be prevented through proper levels of awareness. And that's why I call my program here, Own Your Own Health. It's our responsibility. ask questions when you go to the doctor, or ask questions whoever you're dealing with in any health arena, and do some research. And
Yeah.
I like those get clarification. Don't go to Dr. Google. Don't use Google as your search engine, because
Yeah.
anybody can put anything out there. That some of it's
Mhm.
good information. A lot of it I could post something up there and it can be totally false and misleading. So
Right.
I advocate people, if you have questions, concerns, where to go to find that research around a modality or something that you want to look at for yourself, but ask questions.
Yeah, getting curious, especially with your health, is so very important. And we actually call them complementary layers of healing, because we really do encourage the open communication, teamwork, and collaboration with your primary health providers. And our primary health providers do, they will admit they don't always have all the answers. And when you have a patient who is willing to team with those doctors to help, you know, uh, coming to your doctor and saying, I'm doing this on my end, and this is what I'm seeing. It even helps the doctors as well, kind of piece together. It's a puzzle. So piecing together all those, separate parts and working with your doctor in the communication and getting curious around it really is so helpful for everybody involved on your team for making your health what you want it to be.
Yeah. You mentioned something about your own journey and
Yeah.
stress and different traumas that
Mhm.
you can share on that. But I know this from just life and my
Yeah.
research, and that is that stress is the number one cause of chronic illness.
Yeah.
And if we can manage that, I believe it's what our mind thinks about how we emotionally attach to how we look at health or life in general. And
Yeah.
how do we eliminate stress, how to minimize it? There's two types of stress. There's some that is a good factor, but
Yeah.
most of the stress, and science knows this, it
Yeah.
triggers all the way down to the cellular side of our health and
Yes.
triggers either positive neurochemistry reaction
Mhm.
or negative. And
Yeah.
so if we can minimize stress, we're years ahead of uh, putting off anything that might come in our chronic illness state. So you want to make any comment about stress and things that you recommend people to do?
Yeah, I love that there's more and more research being done that is linking our stress and the impact of stress onto our physical health and some of these symptoms and diseases that we're seeing. And there's more conversation around it now, which I love, because even 20 years ago, there just weren't the conversations. So yeah, and that is a lot of what I do in my classes and how I start. Um, Even though we teach the alternative modalities and I work with a variety of practitioners and we teach self-care, we have to start at the core, which usually I don't want to, pigeonhole, but for many, many, many people, and data shows this, it does start at the stress level. And so when we understand how our body works under stress, how our body functions under stress, our biochemistry, what happens with our organs, and everything, our organs and our endocrine system. So we have certain organs that secrete our hormones, and those are all affected by stress. So when we understand that and have the knowledge around that, that's then where we're able to take the alternative modalities and really implement them into our world, into our day-to-day life. And it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be time consuming. We aren't talking about 2-3 hours at the gym every day, or, I have to take an hour every day to go give a massage. There's little shifts that you can make in your daily routines, just like brushing your teeth, I wear contacts. Every day I put my contacts in, or, just the little things that we do that when we start treating our stress and making it a priority to really support what's going on with it, you're going to start seeing the health benefits pretty quickly. And I always tell people, we've seen this world evolve. We've seen the chaos that goes on around us. While we can't always stop that and stop what's happening in the world around us, we do have a choice of how we react to it. And that is what I teach people is, when the stressful circumstances happen, when we're in the seasons of life that overwhelm us or break us down, there are things that we can really do that are going to benefit our health, so we don't have to have and suffer from the consequences of the stress.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of modalities
Mhm.
and everything from
Yeah.
uh, meditation and a lot of
Mhm.
different things to calm our systems down so that
Yeah.
we take that physiological stress out of our body and let our bodies do what they naturally can do. But if we have
Yeah,
oxidative stress, that creates a whole different
it does.
trigger of the triggers that cause the chronic illness,
Mhm.
whatever it be. So, um,
Yeah, even 2 minutes of deep breathing and knowing how to breathe, that's going to benefit. My dad and I were talking about that the other day. My dad unfortunately has COPD, and it's just progressing, and so he's been learning a lot of new breathing techniques. And one of the things that he said was he didn't realize, as he's learning these new breathing techniques, that he was breathing backwards, and his breathing was shallow. We call it shallow breathing. And when you learn to breathe differently, that's going to benefit your body. What it does from head to toe internally, and for your nervous system and everything, is really huge. Whether it's 2 minutes a day, essential oils, we talk a lot about essential oils. It takes 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes, it takes 10 seconds to just breathe in an oil that's really going to also calm your nervous system and decrease stress and get to the limbic part of your brain, which is where our stress comes from. Being out in nature. I'm sitting outside right now, and it's so easy and simple just to take a couple minutes and go out in nature and just breathe in and feel all your senses, your sight, your smell, your nose, touch, all of those things. Just getting in touch with those things that we all do daily, but being a little bit more aware and intentional about it, those are things that can decrease your stress. So they
yeah,
don't have to be.
mindfulness. Yeah, it's totally call it mindfulness. Being
Yeah.
mindful in this where you're at
Hmm.
and just looking at your beautiful environment. And I
Yeah.
come from a place of gratitude. I believe
Yeah.
gratitude really drops stress
Yeah.
level. We have trauma, we have things that
Hmm.
go bad in life. But if we can I use that in my coaching
Yeah.
as well as a principle of gratitude, how it calms you, go from a negative, which
Hmm.
drives up stress, to a positive, drives down stress,
Hmm.
and it allows you to
Yeah.
respond versus react to whatever's going on in your life in a different way. So
I
there's a
I
lot of
love.
techniques out there that are scientifically based, not just a sounds good, feel good approach that a
Well,
lot
and
of people think.
I love that you said that, because, I have one course that I teach called Mastering Your Mental Triggers. Then we have the other ones, like you said, there's so many. There's positive affirmations, but, there's things that you can do at home. And I could give you a list of 20. And then there's things that maybe you want to do with a practitioner: massage, acupuncture, energy work, finding a fitness instructor to help you bring joyful movement into your life. But the one thing I really tell people is be open, be curious, be willing to try new things. Take the ones that resonate with you and leave the other ones behind. You don't have to do everything. It doesn't have to consume your life. But as you start taking the ones that really resonate with you, that you're like, oh, I really enjoyed that, and that really made me feel good, and you start implementing it, then ironically, and just call it the way the universe works, there's going to be other things that cross your path. And you're going to be like, oh, I really like this one. And maybe you add that one into your life. But I think the biggest stressor, and our goal is to not stress people out anymore, it defeats the purpose if we're stressing people out with self-care. So I really encourage people, you may hear a lot of things, you may learn a lot of things, but have so much grace for yourself and start with one that really, really just that you liked. And then it'll be amazing. Maybe you do that one for a couple months. And then you're like, I want to add in another one. Maybe you do it for a couple years and then you want to add in another one. It doesn't have to be this overwhelming package of change.
Yeah, what I've experienced personally, and as well as with our clients in our wellness center, is when we experience something that we recognize we haven't experienced it maybe a long time or never,
Yeah.
what it feels like to start a path of health. There's it. Your body's telling you.
Yeah.
I have people all the time when their diet. I stopped eating from the fast food, and I started implementing more greens and vegetables and cutting down protein. And for the first time in days, I've never felt this good.
Yeah.
So that's the stimuli to keep. I believe if you can get to you experience it, then you're motivated a different way. Because I tell you what, feeling healthy is a marvelous thing. Your body's telling you every second of the day what's really going on. Just become aware.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had about 5 thoughts in my head and they all just went
I'm sorry to do that to you.
No, because you said so many things and I'm like, yes, I love it. And that's why I love these conversations is you and I could sit here and tell everybody how great it is. But like what you said, it needs to be a personal experience.
Exactly.
And a personal, when they feel it, when they have that shift, that's really what is going to make the difference. We aren't here to lecture. We aren't here to tell everybody how to live their lives. We're here to support, because the reality is everybody's complaining about their health. Everybody is. And it's heartbreaking for you. I know it's heartbreaking for me. I know you feel the same way when you seeing people who are complaining and really struggling. And we don't want to lecture. We don't want to tell people how to live their lives. We want to support and plant seeds of hope.
Yes.
To let people know it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to feel awful all the time. And you don't have to live with this diagnosis or that diagnosis, or there are things that you can do to really support and have the quality of life that you deserve.
Yeah. We're talking about, introduction to alternative, holistic approach. I believe it should be science-based, that there's some validation that we can prove type of thing. But I hear this all the time because we've grown up in a culture and the system that most people are in is they want an instantaneous result. And that's why but it took you years to get to the place you're at. And so no matter what modality, whether it be diet, whether it be nutrition, whether it be exercise, whether it be whatever it is, it's going to take time to reverse or stop anything. So what do you say to your clients that have been conditioned? I don't see anything happening today.
Yeah.
I did it and I don't feel anything. What do you tell them?
And you nailed it. It took years for our bodies to get to this point. There are, some things that we can do, that can produce, I don't want to say immediate results of like, oh my gosh, everything's going to be great and wonderful in 2 days. But there are certain things that you can do that maybe in 1 or 2 or 3 days, you see that your sleep is improving. And when our sleep is what we need it to be and want it to be, sleep is such an important aspect of our health. Long term, that's going to give us the benefits we're looking for. Maybe you see something to where you're not feeling that you're able to do something where you're not getting that afternoon crash. Those are kind of the immediate things that I'm talking about. Maybe you aren't getting that afternoon crash as often, so you aren't searching for the things to give you the pick me up and energy, which again is going to produce the long-term results that we're looking for. So I do tell people it is going to take time. It takes intention. It takes love. So much love for ourselves, our bodies, and the importance of developing a relationship with our bodies. I remember relationships are very, very important to me, and that's actually what my books I write on relationships and the relationship we have with ourselves and how that impacts the relationship we have with others. And I realized one day, I put so much work and time and energy into my relationship with my parents, my relationship with my children, my husband. We work at it. It's something that we're very intentional about, but I wasn't putting that love and intention into the relationship with my body. And when I realized that, and I realized, oh my gosh, I'm not treating my body and talking to my body as nicely as I do my husband or my kids or my parents, it changed my perspective. And that's when I say it takes that love and looking at our bodies. We just have a tendency to sometimes look at our bodies with disgust or dislike or hate or frustration. In thinking about that and realizing some of those things that come along with it, and how can we shift? Okay, I'm in pain today. I'm having inflammation. And typically the words that would come out of my mouth would just be anger. I'm just so angry at my body for feeling this way. So I've learned to really shift that. And how can I love my body? Yes, it may be in pain and it may be inflamed today, but look at what it's still doing for me. It's one of the best gifts probably the top most wonderful gift that we've been given. And we have a tendency to just not treat it well or the way it deserves to be treated. So a lot of grace on, I guess, shifting that perspective, because it does take time. We're just conditioned to do that. And so just flipping the script on that is going to take time, and it is important. So I just giving ourselves also permission, not only grace, but permission, because we're going to have bad days, and we're going to have days where we fall off track, and we're going to have days where it's just not right, and giving ourselves permission to be human and not perfect.
Yeah, love yourself, like you said.
Yeah.
Have some grace. Don't beat
Mhm.
yourself up because you put yourself in that cycle of stress and those type of things. You
Mhm.
mentioned something about sleep, and
Yeah.
I know so many people, they don't get adequate. That is
No.
so restorative.
Yeah.
And what do you do to help people understand the importance of sleep? What type of things you might do, or
Yeah.
somebody you'd recommend to help them deal with sleep, because it's a big problem.
Again, it's about getting curious, because there are many things that can impact our sleep. Whether it's our personal daytime habits that are impacting our nighttime sleep, whether there's something under the surface hormonally going on that can impact our sleep, whether it is, chaos going on around us, whether we've maybe watched the news a little bit too much, or whether you've experienced or you're going through a really difficult time or emotional pain. Um, Definitely different things that can impact our sleep. So getting curious about what is going on first in our world, um, and maybe and talking to people, talking to a practitioner, talking to a wellness educator, talking to your doctor, and kind of narrowing that down, because sometimes we can't always realize it ourselves, but when we have the conversations, we can have that, oh, maybe that's why I'm not sleeping. And then, if it is something under the hood hormonally, figuring out, okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to learn? What needs investigating more? If it is daytime stuff, I always tell my clients, when we have kids and when we have babies, we realize the importance of a bedtime routine. But for some reason, as adults, we forget how important that is to nurture ourselves as well. So we kind of just start there, brainstorming, looking at the big picture as to what may be the core component for sleep, and and then just kind of checking the boxes and seeing what we can do.
Yeah. So you've collaborated with a lot of other different
Yeah.
modalities, different things in the support of that. Um, so your specific discipline, or
Yeah.
what are the things that you do specifically, and then when you find that it's outside your scope of
Yeah.
expertise or whatever, but what do you do specifically? Where do you, if I'm coming to you and I says,
Yeah.
Hope,
Yeah.
let me dump myself on you, all my stuff, what would you tell me? This is where I will start with you.
So I teach and I educate. So I teach people how their bodies are designed to work. So and I teach them about stress and what that looks like and how stress impacts. And like you said, there is good stress. And our bodies, from however many years ago, were designed to handle a certain amount of stress. When we get in trouble is when it turns into chronic stress and we don't have the breaks. And unfortunately, our um, society now has gotten caught up in the disease of being busy. And so we aren't getting those breaks for our body to recover. So I educate people on, again, how our body's designed to work, stress, how it impacts our emotional and physical health. And then, and I'll teach them kind of basics, some really great self-care techniques to start with. And then if there is one that they want to go deeper into, I connect them with a practitioner. So I will teach them, for instance, let's just take essential oils. I will give the very basics. I am not the expert on essential oils, so I will give the very basics. And if I have a client that is really wanting, well, what does this oil do? And I need an oil for this, and I want this, then I will connect them with the essential oils practitioner, provider. If I have somebody that is wanting to learn more, I can teach people about energy and how it benefits our health. I have a whole webinar on that. But if they're wanting to learn more about massage, acupuncture, Reiki, any type, acupressure, even any energy work, I connect them then with the practitioners.
Okay, nutritionists and
Mhm.
dietitians and all those
Yep.
things. Okay.
Yep. Integrative doctors. So I just educate and kind of plant the seeds of hope that there is hope. And then resources is kind of my thing, providing them with the resources that they need if they're wanting to work with somebody a little bit deeper. I'm not a coach. I'm not a provider myself, but I'm an educator. And
Okay.
so I kind of start here and then to let them know what exactly their body, how their body should function, what it needs to function, what's going on under the hood, basically. And I have a lot of clients that will hear things and be like, "Oh, that makes so much sense," but I never knew that maybe I'm having these thyroid problems because my stress hormones are not functioning the way that they should function. And then they want to go a little bit deeper, and I'll connect them with an integrative provider, even their own medical provider as well, that they can go deeper and look into those things with.
What you're saying there is the education. It just
Mhm.
we can't ever make changes in anything in our lives until we become aware that there are something else to look at. Because we live in, I call it silos, and
Mhm.
it's based on how we were brought up, our culture, and how we relate to our health.
Yeah.
If we grow up in a family that has a mindset of healthy lifestyles, we pretty much will follow that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
unfortunately, we don't have a culture where there's a lot of
Yeah.
emphasis on exercise, sleep, and all the protocols of, I call it a gear. These 6 or 7 disciplines, basic categories, they got to all work together. You just can't work on one and expect the motor to
Mhm.
run properly, right? So education is so important. That's what
Yeah.
we do in our centers. We do nothing but educational seminars. And of course, within our center, we have specialized practitioners.
Yeah.
And then because that's outside my scope, I'm very disciplined in one area. But when we hear it, it's about, hey, you may want
Yeah.
to consider talking to an
Mhm.
acupuncturist, for example,
Yeah.
with your condition. So education is so important. I appreciate what you're doing.
Well, and when I was holding my events before COVID, when we were living in the mountains of Colorado, is where I was holding my in-person events. And so I'm the host, and I invite the practitioners in to come speak. And we've had a variety of different, I work really closely with mental health providers because trauma and being trauma informed and understanding and knowing our own trauma responses is really important. And I work with one very closely, and she has been, even though she's a mental health provider that focuses on trauma, she has learned a variety of holistic alternative healing modalities, ear acupuncture, mental health nutrition. She's even learning some yoga, and she brings those in and is using those with her clients. So I've had her come speak often on just kind of that trauma piece that we all need more education around, because sometimes we have a tendency to see other people's but ignore our own. And then, even I have a friend who's a psychotherapist, but she's also an astrologer. And so she uses astrology to help with that mental health piece for people. The more they understand and know themselves, and the science, and she's very science-based around astrology, the more we have an understanding and have grace and permission to just allow ourselves to kind of go through the seasons of life without so much pressure of, oh, I shouldn't go through this. I shouldn't be feeling this way. I need to snap out of this. And then, a variety of, I'm working with a friend of mine who's becoming an Ayurvedic doctor. And a lot of people want to know about that. And yeah, there's so many out there. And again, my goal is to bridge the gap to help people maybe learn a little bit about themselves, to know where they want to start, because it can be really overwhelming to even know where to begin. So if I can help them bridge that gap and make the connections of and give them the resources of what might be a good place to start for them, I'd love to see that process.
Yeah. We just had a couple comments. I want to thank Robert for jumping in. I appreciate you, Robert, your comments. And Lisa just jumped on from LinkedIn. Thanks, and tag and share this out with the audience. One of the things I think is important, is that sharing this, we never know whose lives we can touch that make a big difference in their health. So, share this out. People are looking for solutions, and I don't believe any one person has all the answers, but collectively we do.
Yeah.
Collectively we do. So.
Well, and I think, Tom, I want to mention, because you had said this, and it's been brought up a lot as we've been talking, is that what we've done for so many years and what we were taught, and kind of where we're at now in this big collective of health that many people are struggling with. I think one of the biggest things that we need to remember as parents, as mentors, as role models for the people around us, is teaching these new generations behind us how to do something different, and the importance of that. And like you said, for kids who are raised in a household where they saw this, they're doing something different and having a different experience with their health in adulthood. For the kids that aren't, they may just repeat the same patterns that their parents are struggling through right now. So I just look at what's coming after us, and if we can really see a shift in how we're educating them around health, I mean, that's going to be huge.
Yeah. So you got some books you've written. How many books have you written? Why don't you share? And they can get information about your books on your website, or?
Correct. Yeah. On my website, hopeforhealthwellness.com. So it's funny because I've been writing books for years, and it actually was it was a self-care tool for me back when I was right smack dab in my darkness. That's what I call it. This was 17 years ago. Health issues in the middle of the darkness, chronic stress, in and out of depression, high anxiety, low self-esteem. I started writing. I've always had a crazy vivid imagination. I still do. I I think it's what keeps me sane sometimes. Um, but but I've always had a really crazy imagination, and so I started. I didn't realize it at the time, but I started writing fiction books. But I was channeling my emotions and what I was going through in the darkness, and then through the healing process into these fictional characters and these fictional stories. So I've written probably 5 books. I've published 2. I'm working on a trilogy right now. But a trilogy is hard because you're going to release 3 books at separate times, but you have to make sure that they're all very aligned and tie together. So it's been a little bit more challenging for me, but very rewarding. So I write my books, like I said, where they started from. And so they are about the things in life that challenge us: grief, loss, emotional pain. But I tie in some suspense into the storyline to keep readers really engaged. There's self-help through it. You can see the underlying tones of self-help through the whole books. And it just shows they're about the relationship we have with ourselves and others, our family dynamics, our partners, our children, and when we are going through really difficult times, what that looks like, but then how we can persevere and overcome. They aren't necessarily happily ever after books because we all deal with really hard things in life, but they do give people hope in healing and hope in the fact that you can have the life that you crave and deserve. But it also shows the darkness and what that looks like, and sometimes the steps that it takes to get out of it.
And
So,
maybe even things is knowing what the outcome might look like if we don't take a proactive approach in our lives,
mhm,
and the
mhm.
avoidance of that, because
Yeah.
we all can go down you call it the rabbit hole,
Yeah.
in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
um, Also, your webinars that you put on, you have,
Mhm.
I think you have a free offer as
I
well
do.
on that. Is
Mhm.
that on your website as well, or is that a special link? I just want to make sure before I put anything up.
I think it might be on my website, but you can share the special link if you want. It's on my YouTube page. You know, I need to go, like I told you, I've kind of been on a hiatus for a little bit. So I believe if you go to my website that there is a little stress quiz that you can take. And I believe that you can watch the link to the free Calm the Noise webinar.
Okay.
Um, I might check real quick before I mislead
If
anybody.
there's any questions, they can go to your contact form and send you an email, or
Yeah.
whatever the link is. Because the link I have is pretty long, and I don't think anybody is going to be
Okay.
able to write it down. So that's the reason I just wanted to do that, is to get, for clarity for those that are watching today or anybody watching in the future, to go to your website. You got a contact form. They can reach
Yep.
out to you. Go to your Facebook, I presume, your LinkedIn. I
Yep.
presume you have all those social medias out there to learn more
Yeah.
about what you're doing and that type of thing. Because
And I just looked up my website, and if you go to the very first page, the homepage, you can click to get your free Calm the Noise training. So it's right there. Yep. I'm
good,
glad you asked
that'll
because
make
I
it a lot
actually
much
forgot.
simpler for our listeners today or in the future.
Yeah.
Um, what I was going to make a comment on, and I think it's my mind did the same thing yours did here in a minute ago. It'll come back to me, but my mind goes so fast that this I
Yeah.
can't keep up with it. But you talked about trauma, and
Uh-huh.
you can disclose or share what that trauma
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
because stress is one thing, and stress or
Hmm.
trauma can create stress, and vice versa. But what was your trauma? Was it uh, an abusive
Yeah.
situation, or was it physical trauma? If you would like to disclose that, that's so. What and how do you beat that trauma?
Yeah, and I became through all this process and kind of just having a heart, especially from my own personal experience and my job, because in my job working with family and youth at risk, I actually used to investigate crimes against children,
Oh my God.
um, and I was a victim advocate for that as well. So was exposed to a lot. So the more I understood about trauma, obviously, the better I understood myself and my job. So I did become trauma informed, and we do teach that there's big traumas and little traumas. But regardless of the big ones we know about, those are, people who've served in war and saw combat, and we hear about it all the time. Car accidents, witnessing, horrific things, sexual abuse, physical abuse. We have a tendency to know those big traumas, but sometimes the little traumas get brushed under the rug, but they're still really, really impact our life. And that's what happened to me is I had a series of little traumas that started with the birth of my daughters. They were, I have twins. They're 25 now and just amazing. But, in 1996, when they were born, they were born with what's called twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. And not a lot of known at the time. And of course, we didn't have the internet at that time. So blessing in disguise, I couldn't research anything. But for the most part, and I'm not a doctor, so don't quote me. But for the most part, it's rare for twins there's a procedure that can be done now. But typically one twin doesn't survive, and the other twin who does survive usually has severe disabilities from it. We were diagnosed with twin-to-twin transfusion when I was 28 weeks pregnant. The girls were born at 32 weeks. One girl was, Taylor was 2 pounds, 4 ounces. Morgan was 2 pounds. They did a NICU stay. I was young. I was 23 at the time. Ignorant to everything. And which was a blessing in disguise. I'm not going to lie. So it took me probably 15 years to realize the fear that I went through those 3, even 4 months afterwards, because they had health issues. Morgan was born with a heart condition and had surgery at 6 months old. She had surgery when she was a week old, exploratory surgery. And then they had a multitude of health issues. So it took me 15 years to realize the impact that trauma had on me. And the fear and the anxiety that my body was holding on to from that experience, because I just kind of checked into survival mode. Then 3 years later, I became a single parent, went through a divorce, and divorce is another topic that the grief of divorce is not talked about enough. And that's another kind of goal of mine to work through with some of my partners, my mental health provider partners, is starting some groups to really educate and support people around divorce. Because sometimes we have a tendency, even if you want the divorce, the emotional pain that comes with it, and the shift of your perspective and how you see life can really be devastating. So I went through a divorce. I became a single mom, worked 3 jobs because financially, the divorce was very challenging financially. So I lived under poverty level for several years as a single mom. So again, didn't know at the time, but now know, and have worked through some financial trauma and how that impacts your perspective of life and your fear around money and your fear around security and stability. And then my new husband and he had suffered some trauma in his first divorce. And when we blended our family, and this was 18 years ago, we both brought our unprocessed trauma into our marriage, into our relationship, and it became very toxic and very abusive. So we spent about 3 years kind of in this cycle of abuse in our relationship before we separated and sought help. The wonderful thing is, a lot of our abusive reactions were trauma responses. And when we were both able to work through our trauma, we've been married and have a very wonderful partnership relationship. Not perfect. I always tell people, not perfect. We still have to work at it. But we were able to get out of that cycle of abuse and find ways to have a healthy relationship. So there were a variety of things.
Yeah. So I thought, I just want to ask, because you brought the stress and trauma up and your story. And I think that's so encouraging, is just recognizing and not stuffing it.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge. It's not easy to make relationships stronger. I just recently interviewed John David Mann and his wife Anna Mann on the Go Giver Marriage, and what relationships are about. You need to get a hold of her in what you're doing there, so I can make that happen for you.
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah, because relationships are stressful.
Yeah,
we go into with the panacea and the love feelings and all that stuff, and we're blinded in many cases, and then the reality of what's really happening here can be a traumatic experience. But seeking out help and guidance from a third party and is so important, and that's part of this holistic health, not just our physical health, but our health is our relationships and how we respond, and quality of life is all dictated around all these elements. There's not happiness is what people are seeking, but I always coach people what you're really seeking is joy in life, that everything is in a place of love and that space, and that brings joy. Because in a spiritual context, the Bible never talks about happiness. It talks about joy.
Joy, yeah.
There is no reference to happiness. Happiness is something that could be created and taken away instantaneously. Joy can never be taken.
Yeah, because it's internal. It's within you. It's your spirit. It's your soul.
It's the experience of that love. There's a love. I won't get into my stuff here, but
we could talk forever.
Oh yeah. So, but
that
I tell you what,
an
hour goes really here. We're going to go over a few more minutes, but I think about your free offer again, and want to make sure that the people are aware of that, and to go to your website and they
go to my website on the homepage. There's a link there, and you just click on it, and it says click to get your free Calm the Noise training. It's about a 45-minute, hour long. It's a very wonderful way to start, because we do a brief overview of stress, where it comes from and how it manifests in our life. I have webinars that go way deeper into the science. This is just kind of a brief overview, and then it gives you like 3 or 4 tools at the end. And I believe I end with a really cool, just relaxing meditation. So it's a really good place to start, to just kind of get some seeds planted of what direction maybe you want to go. And that's just it. I always like to meet my clients where they're at and figure this isn't about me. It's about them. And what direction do they want to go? Not where I want them to go, because this is their own personal journey. But it, like you had said, it intertwines with how we show up, how our physical health and our emotional health, our mental health, all of that combines with how we show up in life for the people that we love. And that is why I write my books the way that I do, because like you said, relationships are hard and they cause stress, and the stress impacts our health. And we kind of have this misleading idea of what our relationships are going to be and look like. So I wanted to create really realistic books that people could read and be like, oh my gosh, I've been through that. I'm just like that character. I've done this. I get this, and find some validation that we don't have to be alone on this journey, whether it's with our health, whether it's with our relationships, because they're all intertwined and impact each other.
Exactly. And, I like you said, I can continue. We can go off in all sorts of avenues with my background, my experience, and some of my passions that you'll learn more about as we move forward in our relationship. But I always like to, we're getting close here to, it's an hour, in this. I always like to sort of close out. What would be one pearl of wisdom that you would encourage somebody to embrace in moving forward, of creating a life of a quality of life? A lot of people think about long life, but what would be the message about finding that quality of life, not the length of life, but your quality of life? What would that message might be, if you don't mind me asking?
My one pearl of wisdom, I'm just going to go with what came to my head and my gut, is that out of our darkest times can come our greatest achievements. And it can be so disheartening and scary and lonely when we're in our darkness, and we all go through it. There's no one who's immune to it.
Exactly.
And what I've learned in watching people, that scariness and the darkness and the lack of security and stability and feeling like you're really, really alone can be really hard to recover from, take the next step to get out of. But in watching my own experience and then watching so many people around me, I love to hear people's stories. The one thing that I've learned is they've all recognized some amazing, great things that came from when we were there, from being there. And so I guess my seed of wisdom would be, and I know it's not easy. I 100% know it's not easy, but just maybe if you can remember in the back of your head, my voice or Tom's voice, letting you know that even when you're in that darkness and the pain is there and it feels hard, or, sometimes that is the one step that needs to happen for us to get to where we need to be, whether it's with our health, whether it's with healing something that's gone on in your life, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a shift with your job. That's sometimes in the darkness where it starts. And so when you're in the darkness and you're feeling that pain, if you can maybe just remember our voices saying, out of beauty, out of destruction can come creation and beauty. That would be, I guess, that's just what my gut said. So I'm just going with it. It might not be the one that resonates with everybody, but that's what my gut told me to say.
It was beautifully stated, though. To be honest with you,
Okay.
it's a deep. There's a lot of depth in there. So,
There is, yeah.
but I've really appreciated getting to know you here. We had a few challenges in the beginning, but we're
Yeah.
flowing greatly here. I look forward to continued relationship. I introduce you to my wife here, and I definitely
Yeah.
want you to connect with her. We're in that same space with same mission.
Yeah.
And she works in some of the areas that you've talked about,
Okay.
grieving
Wonderful.
and those type of things.
Yeah.
But how can we help and serve more people
Mhm.
is what we're coming from with Own Your
Yeah.
Own Health.
Yeah.
And want to maintain a relationship with people like yourself and other people that collaborate with Own Your Own Health. And let's stay plugged in, and let's continue serving those that we're here to serve. So.
Well, and I thank you for what you're doing and just reaching and reaching and reaching the masses with sharing the people that you are. You have some amazing people on. I have a interesting relationship with social media. And with me traveling as much as I have been and being off the grid, it's been hit and miss over the last several months. But the fact that we have this opportunity to do this way in the work that you're doing, it's an honor being on here with you. So I appreciate it. And I look forward to more. I love these conversations. I love seeing the impact that it can make, and seeing the changes in people and hearing their stories like, oh my gosh, and just this one thing, and it just shifted my entire life. I love seeing the results. So.
And I think what you said, hope, is when we hear somebody else's story in relation that we can relate to, they've overcome that challenge, whatever it is, and there's hope for everybody. And that's key. And it's only through awareness that we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's only through awareness that tunnel is not dark.
My first book that I published, it won an Author Elite Award in 2021. It's called Piece by Piece, and the tagline is every soul truly worth saving. And I write that because, yes, I want people to know and have hope that, yes, no matter where we've been, what we've been through, demons in our past, hurt, pain, dark things, shame that we still carry, everybody truly deserves and has a soul that is worthy of everything, all these great, wonderful things in life.
Well, I think that we'll close with that. Was perfectly said, and I encourage people to look you up.
Okay. Thank you so much. And thanks
Hope.
to everybody who tuned in.
Let's hope. You know, that great woman. Go to her website, get an insight of what she's doing. But own your own health. It's our responsibility in life to bring the quality of life that we all dream and inspire and desire in life. And it's through people like Hope and other people we've brought into the program to bring a different level of focus to solve the issues that we have of life. And so with that all said today, I just again want to thank Hope for being here, and tag and share with your friends, your audience out there, where on the replay. We never know who we can touch. That ripple effect, the butterfly effect of making a difference in one person's life. So tag and share out there. With that all said, I'm going to sign out. God bless everybody.